Hello, welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast here on an OG's Flavoring Friday. This is your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. OG's, not your average cannabis-infused gummies. Check them out, ogbrands.com. Check us out. Johnny Venerable, Brack here on a pretty loaded Friday show that will feature Fan Mock Friday. Of course, the viewers, our fine viewers, have sent in, Brack and I, over the last 24 hours, your mock drafts. We're going to get to those later in the show on OG's Flavoring Fridays. But first and foremost, my co-host, Brack, how we living on a Friday?
We're living well. We're living flavor in life with our friends over at OG's. And like this offseason for the Arizona Cardinals is going to flavor your life, I think. This is going to be an electric offseason, just like the chat right now. I love what I'm seeing right now. The vibes are immaculate. It's a great Friday, and we're just setting the groundwork for something that's going to be truly special. You know, come combine time, maybe a pre-free agency ad, but once free agency hits in less than a month from now, man, I think Cardinals fans are going to be pumped about the continued direction of this organization.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the direction of this organization, and we'll include a robust free agent like Chris Jones. Maybe not. Chris Jones, of course, Super Bowl winner, likely Hall of Famer. It came out after the Super Bowl via himself at the parade saying he's not going anywhere. Of course, scheduled to be a free agent, scheduled to be many people, including PFF's number one free agent. And he just so happens to play a position the Cardinals desperately need and will spend money on, defensive line. However, according to Ian Rappaport earlier today, this is via sources, the Chiefs have picked up, I didn't even know this was a thing. They've picked up the option to potentially pick up the franchise tag option. So basically, Chris Jones, they've retained his rights to franchise tag him, which includes $4.25 million in incentives. It was more timing than anything, as Jones was due the money. Regardless, if not tagged, he'll be free. But I think this is just a precursor. Like, Kansas City Chiefs can make it work by tagging him and just playing it out year to year. And it sounds like maybe he'd be okay with it. I don't know, Bo, but I think this is a precursor to him staying in Kansas City.
Yeah, it sure is, but it doesn't torpedo in any way the Arizona Cardinals free agency plans, right? And I see in the chat, people already starting to throw around, alternatives and better fits anyway. Maybe a Justin Medabuke from Baltimore, and we'll see what his free agent future holds, and some other names that could become options for the Cardinals, but. Yeah, I just never envisioned Chris Jones being a realistic option for the Arizona Cardinals outside of his draft year when they fumbled that bag horribly. So, I know his combine was eventful for sure. Where he came spilling out of his
wardrobe.
What do you call it? His unisuit. I don't know what it was, but Chris Jones has done nothing but dominate at the NFL level. He continues to play at a high level. He was dominant in that second half for the Kansas City Chiefs. And outside of Patrick Mahomes was the number one reason the Chiefs are hoisting the Lombardi Trophy once again. So it's a smart move for them to retain Chris Jones, or at least setting the groundwork to do so. And it's also good to know that he was really never in the plans for the Cardinals.
Yeah, a lot of people saying he's just out for the money. And frankly, he has the right to do that. He is a three-time Super Bowl winner, he's the best defensive player on all three Super Bowl teams. Think about that. Maybe Tyrann Mathieu on that first Super Bowl team is like co-defensive MVPs, but he's maybe the best defensive player in the history of their franchise. They got him in the second round. I'll never forget, like, that draft, not to go back memory lane or nightmare lane, but I wanted Robert Nkemdiche just like everybody else. I watched him dominate against Alabama. Chris Jones was not a player I probably would have been excited about. I didn't see the cachet, and thankfully I'm not the general manager, albeit Steve Keim was, and made that egregious error, because supposedly, depending on who you talk to, it was between Nkemdiche and Chris Jones that year. And it's unfortunate. Cardinals will rebound, but I'm with people in the chat. He's too expensive. He's too old. If he goes to another team, it's a cash grab. But I think they both realize, like, they've got a good thing going. If they can figure out a way to get a short-term deal done, load it with a bunch of guarantees year to year, I would not be surprised at some point, like, does Patrick Mahomes start deferring money? Like, how much money is he going to make in his career in endorsements? And if he's chasing Tom Brady, that's what Brady did. So And it also feels like they have issues at receiver, but guess what? Just like the Cardinals, like those are going to be addressed in the draft. Like that team knows they can get a receiver at 32. They can get a receiver later on in the draft. Yeah, Chris Jones, I think we can officially probably pour one out for anybody holding out hope that the Super Bowl will be donning his next colors, red and white, with the Arizona Cardinals. However, I do want to quickly pivot because I wanted to touch on that because it came down this afternoon. It's a position need for the Cardinals. But what I initially intended to lead with today, Bo, unless do you have anything else on Chris Jones?
No, not really. I mean, it is pretty set and done with Chris Jones and him really not hitting the open market, and the other 31 teams, his chances, they were pretty slim and they're almost non-existent at this point. So yeah, let's just move forward the combo.
Yeah, and the combo was MHJ versus Malik Nabers, and Malik Nabers is somebody that I think is going to be a good NFL player. I don't know if he's going to be great, or at least I didn't think so. And he's going to be a top 10 pick. How close is he to Marvin Harrison Jr.? What skill set does he possess that maybe Marvin doesn't have? Those are all things I wasn't in the mood to entertain. And then this chart came out today, and this isn't going to sway my opinion one way or the other, but it is one of the most damning charts to some and complimentary to others. This is from Underdog Fantasy's Hayden Winks. He's a great follow at Hayden Winks on Twitter. 2024 wide receiver prospects. He's got all the big time players on here. At the top, quote, in the dogs category, there are roughly 3 players: Troy Franklin, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then at the tippy top, it's Malik Nabers. And this is a combination of yards per route run plus first downs per route. Like, look at that. Malik Nabers, according to Hayden Winks via PFF 2023 data, was basically the most productive wide receiver at the collegiate level. And it's no surprise he's playing with Jaden Daniels. What does Marvin Harrison Jr. do if he gets to play with Jaden Daniels, a projected top 3 to 5 pick? But looking at this chart, Bo, there's so much to dissect here. But like, how elite is Malik Nabers? Like, should we be talking about this as like a 1A, 1B with he and Marvin Harrison Jr.?
One chart. We're going to go off of one chart and his ability to catch first downs per
and
route
everybody
run.
we've had on this podcast that study this is saying that he'd be wide receiver 1 in any other class.
Yeah, look, I mean, and as people are pointing out, you turn on the highlights and they're unbelievable. I mean, as far as his game-breaking, playmaking ability, it shows up, it pops, it absolutely does. But for him to have the edge, and that's what this chart shows, he's just got an edge on Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the complete package, and let's go back to it. What we want to lean on going forward throughout this draft process, draft season, Johnny, is how we really kind of set our draft board. It's through Manalytics. Yeah. Analytics. That's what I'm talking about. Does Malik Nabers have?
We can't steal that.
I will not be stopped until we truly adopt Manalytics as our own and steal it from Colin Cowherd because it's just unbelievable. But
it is.
Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, I think he'll win you over in every single analytical just statistic that you're going to find. So look, if he can have you're going to look at the numbers. He played with a Heisman winning trophy quarterback. And when you looked at Marvin the previous season, he played with CJ Stroud and his numbers were up. And sometimes it comes down to who's throwing you the football. And Kyle McCord, you just look at where he landed after he left Ohio State. He went to Syracuse, not one of the other big Power 5 big time schools after Ohio State, because he knew his days as far as starting at quarterback there were numbered. He was mid at best, and Marvin Harrison Jr. still persevered and is still the top receiver in this draft. And yeah, you're going to see like where he falls short is maybe some top statistics and next level analytics.
I like this from Jessica. Dogalytics. Yeah.
I like that
fire
too.
In your gut. Are you a dog? Are you an alphalytics? People making their case. Like, I think we can do one of two things. Like, you can compliment Malik Nabers, but also say, well, your preference is Marvin Harrison Jr. You can like white wine or red wine or whatever you want, light beer or an IPA. Doesn't make it wrong or right. It's just your preference. I happen to think Marvin Harrison Jr. has a higher ceiling based on his physical abilities. But I can sit here and also say that Nabers' tape and what you watch at the collegiate level, it is a better watch. But I think in part because Brian Kelly is an elite offensive head coach at the collegiate level. he played with Brian Thomas Jr., who's on that chart, by the way, who's going to be a first-round pick. And then, as you mentioned, Jaden Daniels. I mean, what did the Ohio State passing game really have outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. last year? It was
They
pretty
had
bare
a guy
bones.
they had a guy that was going to be ranked ahead of Brian Thomas until he decided to go back to Columbus. They had another first-round caliber wide receiver on that team. They did.
Not my favorite.
Okay. Well, neither is Malik Nabers, you said. So, look, I think that, Malik, it's the different. Could it be the difference between Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? Sure. And that's a good thing for whichever teams land both of those players. But if you're going to go with, like you're saying, I'm going to lean on the guy that's got the size. He's the full package, where I think Malik Nabers, you can look at it like the game film, the stats, they all are there. But if it's all equal, and then there's one thing that's going to set, a Marvin Harrison Jr. apart, and instead he's nearly 6'4", I'll take that.
Yeah, I think it's the physical traits. Because if Malik Nabers was 6'4", not 6 feet, and he plays bigger than his physical attributes do, and he's not small. We know small in Arizona. He's not small, but like Marvin projects to be a Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, Mike Evans type of player, and that player can go up and high point the ball between multiple defenders. Like, if you have a choice between the bigger, longer athlete, if all things are the same, you pick the bigger, longer athlete. And I feel like he just has a better feel for the position. But I think Malik Nabers is an elite level college prospect. And I also think, as somebody points out in the chat, like if it's not a bad place to be if the Cardinals end up taking Malik Nabers. I just wonder, from a trade down perspective, how long would a Malik Nabers last? I don't think he lasts beyond the Giants at 6, frankly. I think Malik Nabers, especially, Rome Odunze's a good player. I don't think he's in their category yet. And I know you and Saul Bookman, our GM, love him, but I think Malik Nabers is going to, if Marvin doesn't participate in the combine, and I don't know if he's going to, I hope to God he does, considering we're going to be there. But if Malik Nabers is the alpha number one and Marvin doesn't participate, I think Malik Nabers is going to have the best combine of any receiver. And so if you factor that in, then he's got the tape to support it. I don't anticipate the Chargers entertaining him at 5. I think Harbaugh firmly wants to take an offensive tackle, one of these 2 tackles. The Giants have to take him at 6. So, for everybody saying trade down, you're going to get a great talent. That might be the case, but the players that we're consistently talking about on this show that we're previewing in the top 6 to 7 picks, they're not going to be available. They're just not. The teams that we've talked about trading down with, Vegas, which we're going to get into later, of the Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, like Malik Nabers is, according to everybody we've spoken with, any other year, not only wide receiver 1, he might be a top 3 pick in an average year when there's not 3 quarterbacks that are going to go 1, 2, 3. So I think it's a testament to him. And obviously Jaden Daniels, we're going to look back and probably have a better appreciation for that LSU team. I saw somebody who was cutting up highlights of Jaden Daniels against Alabama. It was a thing of beauty. So a lot of talent in down south. And it begs the question.
It's an NFL factory. It's an NFL factory, just like Ohio State. And you should feel comfortable taking any prospect out of that program. And can I just set the record straight? Like you threw me in there, you lumped me in there with Saul, our GM, who has Odunze over Nabers. I don't have that as the case.
Okay, my mistake.
I feel like, do we not do a show every day together, you and I?
I thought you guys got chummy at the Super Bowl, and then you guys were all on the Odunze wagon. And
there's a lot to love about Rome Odunze, but I've got him as my 3rd receiver. It's Marvin, it's Malik, and it's Rome Odunze, and it's not, they're not far from each other. But how dare you? How dare you lump me into the Rome crew there? I don't know. I mean, can
I ask you a question? Where do you? Okay, so you just gave me your top 3. Where do you have our boy Keon Coleman, especially after you look at this graphic? One more time with that graphic, Damon Dog.
Yeah.
Is Keon Coleman the new Hakeem Butler of this draft class? Let's see it. He's like last of last, behind, I don't know, Jacob Cowing and Xavier Worthy and Devontae Walker, Jermaine Burton. Keon Coleman's barely eligible to participate on the chart. Does that scare you?
I mean, I think we've been sour. This show's been souring on Keon Coleman. There hasn't been a whole lot of Keon Coleman discussion. Remember when the chart came out about a month and a half ago, where it was the top three guys we just discussed, and then they had Keon Coleman, and it was in this case it was a four-headed dragon, and you've got like the three menacing dragons, and then one kind of goofy looking one, and that was Keon Coleman. Unfortunately, when you look at the statistics, he didn't even reach 1,000 yards receiving, and that was with Jordan Travis for the bulk of the year until he got knocked out with the broken leg. Keon Coleman is one of those guys that is an athlete as far as what he's going to give you, as far as his athleticism and his physicality. Like, you like it, but can he utilize it? Can he kind of harness it on a down-to-down basis enough for him to be consistent at the NFL level? I think that's where scouts and a lot of people are looking for more from him. And it's going to be key for him and during this draft process to show up and show out. But, I don't think he's like Troy Franklin, who is on this list. And I'm not just saying that because he's there. Like, I've seen him more often in the first round than a guy like than Keon Coleman. And also a lot of the guys that we saw at the Senior Bowl, I think, have been more impressive, since probably early November than Keon Coleman, that you would be more comfortable taking.
Nika in the chat, Keon Coleman's route running is non-existent. Franklin is better. Eddie's saying Franklin is going to shoot up draft boards if he shows out at the combine. He is bigger than I thought. Like, he's at least 6'3".
He's 6'3". Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's 17 yards per reception in the Pac-12 for an Oregon team that liked to throw the football. But that's probably, I mean, if you could weasel your way into the mid-20s with pick 27 and to find a way to get Franklin, if somehow you traded down from 4 to wherever, that would probably be like the next best scenario, because we know the Cardinals prefer Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's there at 4. If not, you're looking at a trade down probably for an offensive lineman and then coming up for a receiver like Franklin. I think, because it's funny, there's so many different ways to look at 4 and 27, but if they're trading down and they're trading down to the early teens, I think that removes them, assuming that Nabers and Odunze are gone, and they might not be, especially Odunze. That removes them from a wide receiver, because I don't think there's a fourth wide receiver that's worth a top 15 pick right now. But there are multiple tackles that you could talk yourself into 11,
Sure.
12, 13. And then on the flip side, getting aggressive with 27 to make sure you don't exit the first round with nothing at pass catcher.
Well, yeah, that's the disparity between the top 3 guys and then the next wave, which it's not an indictment on this receiver class. It's still as deep as it ever will be. I think when you look at a guy like Troy Franklin, like what he could project as is a steady 1, right? And that's great. That's tremendous, especially if you're able to get him somewhere at the end of the first round. But what Nabers, what even Odunze brings to the table, and most importantly, Marvin Harrison Jr. brings to the table, are like elite playmakers that are going to be at the top of the league. Like, that type of playmaking, it's tough to replicate. Like, you can get steady playmaking, but the stuff, game-changing stuff, these 3 receivers, they offer that. They made, 2 of these 3 guys made quarterbacks in this draft, in Odunze for Michael Penix, and Malik Nabers and Jaden Daniels. So, and then of course Marvin Harrison Jr. has just been doing it since he got to the college level and was with CJ Stroud, and then Kyle McCord was able to take his mid skill set and maximize it.
Daniel in the chat, it is tough because both LSU and Ohio State have produced great receivers. Yeah, I mean, name the last Ohio State receiver that's disappointed in the NFL that had real expectations. I think Garrett Wilson in New York has been a victim of circumstance with his quarterbacks, and I think he still finds a way to get over 1,000 yards. And Garrett Wilson with Kyler Murray is a different story. And then, of course, Chris Olave, who this podcast loved. I was literally probably like 10 rows up at the combine with Saul that year, watching Chris Olave run his 40 time. And it was just like, they're built differently at Ohio State and LSU. At LSU, every other year, they have an elite wide receiver prospect. So it's a good problem to have. We're going to talk more about a potential trade down, and we're going to loop in the Las Vegas Raiders, because the situation surrounding Jimmy Garoppolo is dire to the point where the Vegas Raiders are just going to outright release Jimmy G. which means they're going to be heading into the offseason with Aiden O'Connell and a big bucket of nothing. But speaking of your bucket, you can fill it right now with some bonus bets with our friends at BetMGM. Bet 5, get 150 instantly. I don't know if you need to hear this or not, but ahead of the All-Star break, Phoenix Suns, white hot. And you can get in on the action right now. Dabble with our friends at BetMGM. Place a 5 spot. Put on any NBA game, NHL, whatever. It's just got to be a standard odd price bet. $5 is going to net you 150 in bonus bets for new customers, regardless of the outcome of your wager. So your bet could hit, great. You win your winnings plus your bonus bets. If it loses, you still get 150. Count it, 150 in bonus bets. What you got to do, you got to download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on your iOS or Android, or visit our friends at betmgm.com. Tell them PHNX sent you with the bonus code. You guessed it, PHNX. Again, $5 equals 150. Check out the show notes for full details. Now listen to Damon Dog talk about it in the disclaimer.
Problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Let's talk about more ways to win, and you can win always with our friends over at Arizona Lottery, and they've got a great promotion. It's called Arizona Adventure. There's a couple ways that you can cash in here and win money and prizes from our friends over at Arizona Lottery. They've got the unique new ticket promotion, Arizona Adventure. There's 3 ways to play big and win big. Arizona Adventure lottery tickets, you got 3 iconic landscapes that you can just purchase and scratch off like usual. Cacho Peak, Monument Valley, Camelback Mountain. And these tickets have prizes up to 50 grand. That's great. Everybody could use an extra 50 grand in their pocket. Or you could visit azadventure.com for details and directions to where you can go out. And when you're out adventuring, you could check in and use the geolocated adventures at 10 destinations across the state, from Flagstaff to Yuma, even down south to Tucson. It's unbelievable what Arizona Lottery is doing. Don't miss out on this incredible promotion, the AZ Adventure. Go visit azadventure.com for more information and how you can take an adventure for a chance to win $1 million in cash in Arizona travel prizes.
Lots of prizes to be had. Are the Cardinals going to cash in on a big-time prize via the NFL draft? It's just 3 months away, and we're going to be breaking it down every step of the way. But, Bo, I thought it was very appropriate today. I did not know that the Las Vegas Raiders had planned on potentially moving off Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason. I thought they'd at least bring him to camp, but now it's supposedly it was all but predetermined before today's news. The news being Jimmy Garoppolo suspended 2 games into the 2024 season for, I don't know, PEDs. So keeping that chin strong, as Jimmy G would. So Jimmy Garoppolo, a non-factor, and there's even reports of people saying, like, could his NFL career be done? But all but a sure thing, Bo, the Vegas Raiders are releasing their starting quarterback from last year that signed a multi-year deal, not on the team. Aiden O'Connell, not a real option. I would say, Damon Dog, pull up the top 10 in the NFL draft order, but Raiders aren't in the top 10. They won too many games last year. They are outside looking in. Does this make, in your opinion, the Vegas Raiders public enemy number 1 in the best possible way to trade up with either New England or the Arizona Cardinals at 4?
No, I mean, I think that they join a group, and I think they were firmly in this group already. I mean,
Okay.
you were starting to hear it with, the connection between Antonio Pierce, who's the Raiders head coach now, promoted from interim to full-time head coach, and that he's got a relationship with Jaden Daniels dating back to their ASU days. And, just playing simple, connecting the dots, but also just looking at that quarterback room. And when we were out there at Radio Row, I mean, Aiden O'Connell was the guy. Like, he was out there acting as starting quarterback for the Raiders, doing interviews and being seen and a man about town as QB1 for the Raiders. So I'm sure they're not content with that by any means. I'm sure they like Aiden O'Connell, but he's still got a long way to go. Or is he ever going to be truly a starting quarterback in this league? But yeah, the Raiders are always a team that they're a wild card, with their ownership, and it seems like there's been no consistency, no continuity with that organization. And, at the drop of the hat, they could drop 3 first-round picks to potentially move up and get one of these quarterbacks. Absolutely. So, what do they do as far as the kind of what do they do as far as striking fear into Cardinals fans' hearts? I mean, nothing right now. They're pretty harmless, but this Jimmy G stuff, it's just like you felt like his time was done, right? The Raiders got damaged goods from the Niners as far as Jimmy G went, and for him to get a pop for a PED violation, like what are we doing here? I mean, is it to keep and maintain that beach body at this point, because it's not to play football any longer?
No, he's trying to broadcast after. He's looking good, like a Mark Sanchez or a Brady Quinn post his NFL playing career. I have no idea if he can talk on air, but yeah, he's cashed one final check, it feels like, for the Vegas Raiders, and his career might be over, which is a shame for him, but clarity for the folks in Vegas. It's funny, like you look at the top 10, and let's pull it up for the sake of this conversation. You know, on the surface level, you could say, well, a lot of these teams need quarterbacks, but then you think about, okay, the top 3, we're all in agreement. QB should go 1, 2, 3. Well, we know the Cardinals and the Chargers are out of the QB market. The Giants have come out and said they're not going to draft one. Now, we'll see if that remains to be true. They're just going to bring in competition for Daniel Jones. Maybe a second rounder, maybe a free agent. Titans, the GM that drafted Will Levis is still there. Ron Carthon.
Yeah, I feel so bad for the Giants, by the way, their fan base.
No, it's great. They stink. I don't like them at all. The Falcons on this list appear like the only team, because the Bears are going to get their quarterback. The Jets have Aaron Rodgers. The Falcons feel like the only team that could trade up. Am I wrong here? In the top 10.
Yeah, just about. I mean, that would be aggressive enough to do so for sure.
And then, okay, so outside the top 10, then it becomes you have much more clarity. And I'm calling this murderer's row until I hear otherwise. I've got Minnesota, who is easily number 1 on my board right now, because even if they bring back Kirk Cousins, he's not going to play until October at the earliest. Minnesota's picking 11. Denver is picking 12. Vegas is at 13. I'll throw New Orleans in there at 14. 11, 12, 13, 14. Those 3 teams, 11, 12, 13, when you got Minnesota, the Broncos, and the Vikings, the Broncos. I already forgot. Gosh darn it.
Saints.
And no, here it is. The Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, and the team we're just talking about, the Vegas Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Like all 3 of those teams are in a desperate spot, and all have been out, like basically saying like, we need a quarterback. So knowing that, and knowing that the expectation is multiple first-round picks, do you have a preference from one of those 3 teams, given the state of their roster with potential star players to deal from? And, I'll just put you on the spot, like their draft pick situation. Any of those teams pop off to you of like, of course, I would want their picks and their players?
I just think like none of them really give you too much upside. Like they're just going to be good enough to be dangerous to your draft pick, but they're not going to, like, they're fooling themselves if they think that they're going to be good enough to really make any noise in the NFL soon, like under the first contract that Sean Payton has signed. And what's really going to happen? What's life look like on a day-to-day basis? Is Antonio Pierce really going to be the leader of men that he was? Or is there going to be consistent buy-in now that he's the lead guy for the Raiders, and then, the Vikings, they've got probably the best roster. I just don't know if you want to mess with them that much. But what are we talking about here? We're talking about if Marvin is off the board and you're looking for a team that's going to be hungry for one of the quarterbacks remaining, a Drake May or Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it's tough because I don't think I want it. The more I think about it, the Vikings don't do a lot for me, even though they have the highest pick. And I'll tell you why. Because I think they've got a pretty competent coach. And I think the NFC is, I mean, if they were to hit on a quarterback, CJ Stroud style, or even like 80% of CJ, let's say they trade up, they get Jaden Daniels. I mean, like I feel like that coaching staff and the talent level on their team is good enough every year to get 7, 8, 9 wins. Yeah. So like a future one from them, I think we'd be in the same spot as last year. And then on the flip side, it's like, okay, Denver and the Raiders play in the AFC. They play in the AFC West, which is about to be a gauntlet. But like, you really want to be picking 12 or 13 in this draft? You want to be picking 13. If Vegas calls you, if you're Monty Ossenfort, they're like, we want Jaden Daniels. We're going to give you 13 and a couple extra picks and maybe a mid-level player. You want to go from 4 to 13 in this draft? That would be a tough pill to swallow for your franchise, for your fan base. And I get, like, Could be 3 future top 10 picks for all I know, but that's a long way to go for Austin Ford. I mean, think about like the Bears traded down last year with Carolina. I mean, wasn't that not that far? It was like 6 or 7 picks, right?
I think when you're looking at like who the most volatile organizations are, it's probably Vegas and then throw back in New Orleans. Like New Orleans is in cap hell still. They, as far as their drafting, it hasn't been spot on as it was when Loomis was working with Sean Payton, and that a lot of their stars have aged, and that they're staring down a rebuild, and that like really poor quarterback play could put them in a position to really just fall apart. The wheels completely fall off. So I don't know. I mean, you're right. Like that, you don't want to have to be in a spot to that. Those are the teams that you're negotiating with. But when you look at the top 10, yeah, there's really just one team that you're going to be able to leverage enough for them to come up and get your pick, but also stay in a position to get a top 10 caliber prospect.
Yeah. I feel the watered down effect of the trade situation with some of these teams. And who knows, like Tennessee may change their mind on Will Levis and say, we're going to come up, and that would be a perfect opportunity to go from 4 to 7. That would be like the ideal sweet spot. Cause I think you could get Tennessee's 1 next year from going up from 4 to 7, pay the QB tax, and then still assure yourself a top tackle or receiver. I think that'd be a great place for Austin Ford. Top G, Broncos and PS2, but doubt they do it. They would have to. There's no way I'm going with any of those teams without a quality starter, especially now the Broncos and the Raiders, like 12 and 13. We need like one of your best players on your roster. You want to come up for your quarterback? Like, there's not enough first round picks you can give me. You're only allowed to give 3 first rounders, by the way. A lot of people don't know this. So they can give their first this year, which is a first round swap. So you're losing value on that. Then they can give you their ones in 2025 and 2026. I think you need one more on top of that. So, like, would you take Devontae Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders if they offered him up as a throw-in? You're making a face right now. Too old, too expensive for you?
No, I just think we're getting a little crazy right now. I think we're getting a little.
No, that's what Fridays are for.
Little wild. I don't know. I just don't. I mean, first and foremost, I think that if the board falls how we anticipated falling, the Arizona Cardinals, this is all a moot point, right? You just go get yourself Marvin Harrison Jr., call it a day, and figure out what you're going to do at 27, or if there's somebody that you feel like you want to move up for. But no, I mean, I think, yeah, when you get into guys like Devontae Adams is not equal to Patrick Surtain. Now, I know that the resume is way, way, way impressive, and
I agree with that.
You need a playmaking wide receiver still. But I just don't think that they want to take on a guy with at that age, that contract. I just don't think it fits in any way possible.
Agent 47, no way Monty will give up MHJ to the Bears. I don't. The Chicago Bears, let's see what they get for Justin Fields. Let's see how much ammo they have, and let's see what a lot of these teams do in free agency. Like, free agency is going to tip the hand of a lot of these franchises. But I do wonder, Bo, when Fields is traded and the dust settles there, wherever he goes, then it becomes whom? Russell Wilson? Do you wait on that if you're a lot of these teams? Ryan Tannehill? I mean, like, it's like musical chairs with like mid-level quarterbacks. There's going to be like 4 or 5 franchises that don't get somebody that's at least competent to open their season for them. And then we start to circle those teams as, okay, it's game on. And I think potentially we could see if the Patriots decide they want more picks.
Yeah.
I think after the free agency dust is settled, then we pivot to a trade down and a trade up from somebody in the early teens.
Yeah. That's probably the worst of all realities, isn't it?
What?
Just having a deal like that would, like, our draft party would be lame. Like, nobody would be in on that.
Oh, going from 4 to like 13?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm saying we're all over the place here on a Friday. I'm saying, or maybe it's just me. I'm saying that I think after free agency wave 1 is ended and Tannehill signed and Russell Wilson has a new team and Justin Fields and whoever hell is out there. Once those players have picked their teams, then I think somebody is going to call New England, maybe even beforehand, and say, we want to come up to 3. Are you interested? And then maybe we see a deal. So here's what's going to happen. then follow me on this.
Mm-hmm.
I think a team like the Patriots, what if they go out and they get Russell Wilson and then everybody's going to go nuts on the Twitter streets like they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr.? I think it could be just as likely that they said, okay, we have our placeholder for this year. Now we can trade down. I could see that being a reality.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they would probably, I see them as a franchise that would absolutely get somebody that could vie for a starting position, whether it is a Tannehill, whether it is a Russ, or even if they get aggressive and they get a guy like Justin Fields, if that they are going to keep us on our toes for the majority of the draft process. And it's going to be tough to figure it out, like what direction they're going to go, but most likely it probably is going to stand in the same place it is right now, where they still would be best suited for a trade down to accumulate assets.
I'll tell you what's a dream that you can make a reality is our friends at Circle K. It's America's thirst stop, and this weekend, perfect chance for you to join the Inner Circle. Load up on some premium gas at not a premium price. Join the Inner Circle for free right now by downloading the Circle K app. Here's what it's going to get you. Well, you get a free new membership program, download to your smart device. Plus, you're going to save 25 cents per gallon on your first, count them, 5 fill-ups. You got a road trip you're taking this weekend with the fam? Well, buckle up. Circle K is going to hook you up with 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, plus save 3 cents per gallon every single day. So basically, if you're downloading this app and you're joining the Inner Circle, you're saving money at Circle K every single time you go. It's not a one-off. 25 cents for 5 and then 3 cents every day after the fact, plus every 6 free selection on pizza, ice cold fountain drinks, coffee. I mean, I drink coffee every day. That means I'm getting a free coffee every 6th day, which is fantastic. So is the Inner Circle app. Download it today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. You don't know where to go? Visit circlek.com/store-locator when you're out and about driving around to find the nearest Circle K to you.
Tough to beat what's going on at Circle K. Tough to beat what's going on as far as all these mock drafts we're receiving, right, Johnny? Every day, every single time I open up the Twitter or the X app, whatever I intend on calling it Twitter for the remainder of my days, but seem to be added with another mock draft. And I think it's time to call attention to some of these impressive mock drafts. They're in our Discord as well.
Yep.
Let's take a look at them. Producer Damon Dog, let's just start firing these up on the screen. Take a look at them. So our first draft here, can you tell me who this is, Damon?
This is from K1 Day One. Great follow on Twitter.
Beautiful.
Sent this to me yesterday. And listen, this is probably one of the best ones I've seen, Bo, in some time.
Yeah, starting with Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's a good start. Tyler Guyton sticking and picking at 27, the Oklahoma tackle. Chop Robinson at the top of the second round, 35th overall, the edge out of Penn State. Then he starts to dial up the phones, get on there, and pulled off a trade with the Cleveland Browns and got a haul of picks to move down. Got back into the second round for a 55th overall selection, Tavondre Sweat. So he's starting to address the interior of that defensive line. Got Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who is a cornerback who starred at the Senior Bowl this year. Was a big name, was a fast riser. Of course, he went to Louisville, which is the alma mater of Jonathan Gannon, but Brownlee had a huge Senior Bowl. And then you've got Malachi Corley. He's a wide receiver at a Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers. And then you got Bucky Irving, the good running back there out of Oregon. I got to say, I agree with you. This is a rock solid mock.
Malachi, a fast riser for Cardinal fans. And you know me, I would love to double dip on this receiver class. And Tyler Guyton wants to be a Cardinal. I don't know if he's there at 27. I think he's a tremendous, tremendous talent out of the University of Oklahoma. PFF doesn't love Chop Robinson, so that skews the grade a little bit. Chop Robinson's a top 40 to 50 prospect for me, so I have no issue. And then, hey, I like the aggressiveness with the trade. Absolutely. Like, go down and get more picks. We saw Austin Ford and company make the most of their 5th and 6th round picks last year, specifically Dante Stills in the 6th round. So, this is an A draft for me. No surprise from our guy K1 Day One mock. Let me cue another one up here. How about Lou's mock, Bo Brock? What do you think about this here? Coming with the heat via the Pro Football Mock Draft Simulator, and you talk about blue chips at the top of this one. Jackson Powers Johnson, in particular, a darling of many in the Cardinal community.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's able to get JPJ there at 27. So you get him on the potential 5-year deal. And then at the top of the second round, he's able to get Tyler Guyton. And of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. is his 4th overall pick. And then you start to look, okay, so you've got your offensive line in the future locked in. You've got Paris Johnson Jr. probably switching over to left tackle. You've got Guyton as your right tackle. And then you've got JPJ maybe playing some left guard to start his career, but then pop into the center position once Yelda Froholt's contract is up, or flip-flop those guys. But your offensive line is set for many years to come. And then you start to look at a couple more needs. He goes to Kansas in the 3rd round. Austin and Booker, the edge there. You got Brandon Dorless out of Oregon as your interior defensive lineman, as one of your 3rd-round picks. And then finalizing your 3 of 3 3rd-round picks, DJ James, an SEC cornerback out of Auburn. You got to really like this from our guy, our diehard, Sweet Lou Dog, dropping some a real nice mock draft.
Somebody get Sweet Lou in the war room this year, because this is about as chalk making it rain as you can get. DJ James in particular, a favorite of mine. But the Cardinals, listen, you're going to get a lot of people that are going to say, where's the defense early in the draft? Lean into the draft strength. That's why they have to address defense and free agency, and then let the board fall to you. Like, I don't care if Paris last year, #1 pick, plays offense, and then their first 3 picks this year play offense. I'm sorry, draft the best players. If you want to draft for need, you would have drafted Tyree Wilson last year, and that would have been a huge flipping disaster. So they took a tackle. Yes, they had a surplus at tackle. And then look, by the way, Paris Johnson Jr. should have been on the all-rookie team, was fantastic. Those are likely the best players there. Certainly Marvin. Jackson Powers Johnson, according to PFF, should have been picked 5 spots before, and we both love Tyler Guyton. That's a steal at 35. So love what I'm seeing from Lou. How about our guy Jordan, or gal, here in the mock draft? And this is a different simulator that he ended up using here, but the results speak for themselves, Bo.
Yeah, it looks cool. It's a lot cooler looking, sleeker, I guess, setup than PFF. But he goes Marvin Harrison Jr. We're 3 for 3 there. Also, we're 3 for 3, but in different scenarios, with 2 out of 3, with 27th overall, taking Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma, who you and I are skeptical whether or not he'll be there or not, as he was kind of a fast riser, a trendy name at the combine. Then he's going to go to the Iowa State and take TJ Tampa, the cornerback, 35th overall from the Cyclones there. So starting to address the secondary. Then you've got Cedric Von Prawn, the center out of Georgia, with your first of 3 third-round selections. Defensive lineman Michael Hall Jr., a 20-year-old interior defensive lineman from Ohio State. Darius Robinson hangs on until pick 90. That's a great value pick there after the Senior Bowl he just had. And then Leonard Taylor III, he's going to take the D lineman out of Miami. So after kind of waiting on the interior defensive line, goes back to back to back. All 3 your third rounders are interior defensive linemen. And this looks pretty good. I mean, I don't know about TJ Tampa. I don't know about Von Prawn. I know that he's played some big downs for the Bulldogs down there in Athens, but you know, you can't really kind of argue with his top 2 picks and his final 3 picks.
I love the center guard combination. I'm a big Van Prawn fan, especially just being the center of the dynasty for the Georgia Bulldogs. Like that's not going to bother me. This is a low-key great interior offensive line class in conjunction with how special it is of a tackle class. So again, as long as you're making a case for these guys, I'm absolutely for it. And plus, we're seeing like positional values prioritized when they need to. Like first 2 picks, tackle and receiver. Darius Robinson, 3rd rounder, premium position edge rusher. And then you can supplement interior O-line, which I know they value here and there, but like we're not seeing off-ball linebackers and safeties and a bunch of cockamamie positions. There's typically an average of 1 to 2 corners in every mock that we review. So, I mean, you can make your case for a lot of players, but the position is just as important. Let's check out our guy Benjamin is up next. Benjamin's mock draft. This one, I believe, is from the PFF mock draft simulator. A lot of usual cast of characters here, and there's no surprise that the letter grade bow starts and ends with A. And if you're thinking to yourself, we can tackle offensive line and free agency, this might be one of the best ones I've seen.
Absolutely. I mean, I've never seen a report card that looks this good before. A plus, A
Never.
minus, A minus, A minus, A minus. Starting, and we're 4 for 4 now. Marvin Harrison Jr. 4th overall. Then
Best.
going with Byron Murphy the 2nd with the 27th overall selection. Then staying on the interior of the defensive line, bump out, play some edge. Darius Robinson in Missouri that we talked to on Radio Row said he'd be cool to come to Arizona. Didn't he say that to you, Johnny?
He did,
Edrin
yes.
Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M at 66. That's your first 3rd round pick. Mike Sanastril had the pick in the national championship game in 6 this season for the national champion Michigan Wolverines. And then the big-bodied 6'7" wide receiver out of Florida State, Johnny Wilson, with your final 3rd round pick. Now, people, I don't know, Wilson, I wasn't getting good vibes out of Wilson in the way that people were talking about him at the Senior Bowl. Still trying to figure out, how he fits. What's his position fit at the next level? Does he have the separation ability? But 6'7", he's big. Started ASU, ended his college career at Florida State. This is a solid draft from Benjamin as well. I like it. I really do. At 27 with Byron Murphy, and then going back and taking Darius Robinson, kind of resembles what you did with your mock draft, Johnny, that you have on gophnx.com.
Yeah, if a player the caliber of Byron Murphy makes it to their 2nd pick, that all but, I think, redeems the Houston pick, because I think Byron Murphy, and I put this in my mock, he is one dominant combine performance away from not only being defensive tackle number 1, but being a top 20, top 15 pick in this draft. I mean, that position's a premium position, in my opinion. And then you think about, I like the guys atop this defensive line class, but then it can get a little sparse. Like if you're a team that's picking 14, 15, 16, 17, would you rather have the 5th best tackle, the 5th or 6th best receiver, or the number 1 defensive lineman in this class? And I think that that's what he is. And by the way, we talk about Michigan and their front 7 a lot on this show, and it was elite under Harbaugh, and they won a national championship. I still contend that I think, even with a loss against Washington, I think Texas had the best defensive line in the country. And we see it now come to fruition in these mock drafts and in draft prospect rankings. Sweat and Byron Murphy were unblockable against Alabama. They dominated that game. And I think, Washington won that game against Texas because they spread them out and they just had elite caliber athletes running around. A Dunzy, say what you want about Michael Penix throwing the football. But Texas, they controlled the line of scrimmage in most every game they played. So, I mean, I would be enthralled. Harrison and Byron Murphy, that combination, get the Pro Bowls ready. Get the jersey sales ready. Those are 2 blue chip cornerstone players of your roster. It would be a home run.
Yeah, I mean, Cardinals fans are used to seeing, great play at the wide receiver position, but we haven't seen great play from an interior defensive lineman. I mean, J.J. Watt in his final season was playing kind of outside, playing an edge, kind of 4-3, 3-4. I mean, he was in there and he was disruptive, but we haven't seen it really since the Calais Campbell, Darnell Dockett days.
Consistent, right? We got one kind of flash in the pan season from JJ on a bad team.
Right. So how many more mock drafts do we have? 1 more? 2 more?
We've got 2 more. We've got next up is Philly mock. Hopefully he's not from Philadelphia and hates JG, but you know what Philly did? Philly just said, F it, I'm going to do the entire 1st round, which I love that. Mm-hmm. We're going to do that eventually on this show. Philly mock, bringing the heat. Obviously, Marvin at 4, Bo. Cooper DeJean at 7. That's certainly a choice. Lot of Bama players in this mock. I think I count 5 first-rounders for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, it would be a big class for Bama, but yeah, I mean, it's still 5 for 5. Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Arizona Cardinals at 4th overall, and then 27th overall. I've heard this one as well. Tyler Guyton going to the Cardinals, and it's that conversation's interesting. If Tyler Guyton isn't on the board, or if he's in the conversation, and you start to look at where the Arizona Cardinals could go, and I've said this, I maintain this, you go with the tackle position, right? But the Arizona Cardinals, they need probably another tackle. They certainly need a left guard. And then you start to go off what you were kind of talking about with the defensive line. Would you want a top defensive lineman, or would you want the 5th or 6th best wide receiver? If you start to maybe bump inside at the guard position, can you find some value there? You start to look at JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, or Graham Barton out of Duke. Just look for the best offensive lineman that could potentially start day one for you at 27, regardless if it's a tackle or interior. I know people value, including myself, tackle over guards.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are going to show their hand in free agency. You and I kind of talked about this off air. Like, are they going to go out and sign a big name left guard? Well, then that would kind of put the fire out here of making that a need. Or are they going to try to band-aid a couple positions while leaving themselves open? Can you go find the next Yelda Frold, hold a guard, or even right tackle, depending on what happens with Kelvin Beachum and GJ Humphreys? I think I'm with you, though. Like, to me, it would be a foolish mistake to not come out of this draft without one of these tackles. It's just there's too many of them, and you have too many picks, especially if you don't get Marvin. Like, I think if they don't get Marvin Harrison Jr., I feel more confident than I have been that the tackle is going to be in play just because of who they're going to potentially trade down with. Because as you saw in that mock, like Alu Fashanu was available, which I don't think is likely, but like, are you going to take Troy Franklin or Brian Thomas Jr. in like 13th or 14th overall? Probably not, right? But there's like 3 or 4 tackles that they could talk themselves into at that position. So I don't know. I feel like right now it's an offensive heavy draft, so you'd be foolish not to lean in on it. And I also feel like for the Cardinals in particular, Kyler Murray is your investment. You have to surround Kyler Murray with cheap assets via the draft so they can elevate each other. Then go spend money in free agency defensively. If that's the path forward, not everybody builds their team the same way. There are teams that are going to prioritize defense and they have a bridge quarterback and they're going to try to win games a certain way. You can pay Kyler Murray $50 million a year. If you're not paying Marvin anything, if you're not paying Paris and Tyler Guyton and some of these guys, cheap running back eventually, Trey McBride's on a rookie deal, then that all works in conjunction with each other. And then you can go out and you can buy a defense in free agency.
Yeah. All right, let's see if we can make it just a clean sweep here. Is it going to be 6 for 6? Marvin Harrison Jr. is the top pick for the Arizona Cardinals, 4th overall.
There it is.
Kevin. Yes. Ding, 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 ding. And Tyler Guyton again. I mean, Tyler Guyton's been in basically every one of these mocks.
He's a fan of the Cardinals. He's a fan of the people on this show. Makes sense.
Darius Robinson, who's the edge from Missouri. Jalen McMillan, another wide receiver. Johnny, you got like that. Dwayne Carter, the interior. Now he's starting to build the trenches on the defensive front. Dwayne Carter at a Duke, and then McKinley Jackson at a Texas A&M. I like this one as well. I think everybody crushed it. There's a lot of groupthink here, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, when you look at Oklahoma, you look at Ohio State, they just are NFL factories. They're still playing in Norman with some of the leftovers from Lincoln Riley, and you've got some really talented players still there. So I loved all 6 of these drafts. I think I would sign up basically for each and every one of them if the Arizona Cardinals are bringing home the prospects that our listeners, part of the PHNX community, drafted for him.
Yeah. Marvin Harrison Jr., though, it was number 1 in all of these mocks. I was just double checking on our PFF mock draft, or not PFF, our mock draft tracker, gophnx.com, 80+% Marvin Harrison Jr. And the ones that don't have Marvin Harrison Jr., it's because Marvin is gone. So in no scenario that I've seen that we can talk ourselves into is Marvin Harrison Jr. passed on by the Arizona Cardinals. Like, it just, there are some places that are painting that right now as an option. Find me that person with, decent information that could look us in the eye, who have watched the tape, knows this team, their needs, and say, you can afford to pass on him at 4. You just, come on. If you're not taking Marvin at 4 and you're in the business of drafting players, like, maybe you shouldn't be picking players. Like, would you question Austin Ford and his ability to evaluate if he did that? I would, even after last year's draft. I would say we might have a problem here.
Even after you watch Michael Wilson play and Garrett Williams, and you saw some guys later in the draft, you would? I mean, it's that
he
kind of
Pro Bowler yet. Let's see how I want them to all be Pro Bowlers. I think Paris is going to be a Pro Bowler. But hang on, people are saying I'm too fanboy sometimes. This is me being impartial and saying, you pass on Marvin. Like, how much pressure does that put on the player that you draft?
Right. No, for sure. And I think that plays into it for Monty, and that's why it's a very unlikely scenario. It's a very big hypothetical question. Giordano wants to know what our favorite mock was, Johnny. Which one stood out to you?
Oh man. Well, they're all great. They're all aces.
I
to me
think the
'cause
first one was the best one by far.
from K1 from day one.
Yeah.
That was the first one. This one right here. Sorry, Damon Dong. I'm clicking buttons. So I agree with that. But I mean, I also loved the one that had Darius Robinson and Byron Murphy going 27-35 to the Cardinals. Speaking of K1 on day one, I'm give him a shout out on Twitter because I haven't been able to find this while you were reading the final mock, but he posted this. He said Benjamin Albright is saying that the Bears have decided that Caleb Williams is going to go number 1 overall. So I'm guessing that maybe K1 since day one was listening.
What about the president just 2 days ago saying all those nice complimentary things about Justin Fields? What about that? Somebody check in on my guy Greg Braggs too. Is he okay?
He'll be into that. I think he'll be able to take
he's in the Taco Bell drive-through again already.
Greg Braggs, a big sweetheart. Check him out. CHGO Bears taking his shirt off at Radio Row. Hopefully taking his shirt off at the NFL Combine. I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. Do we get a Fields trade? If this is true, let's just assume this is true. Do we get a Fields trade before the Combine?
It probably is going to happen at the Combine, right? I mean, that's where the GMs are basically in the same room together, and a lot of deals are negotiated right there. I wouldn't be shocked if before would help some of the teams as far as their team building and their approach. But at the same time, I think that, it can happen while we're in Indy and then, or shortly after.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields' time in Chicago has about a lifespan of about 3 weeks max. And then we'll be able to all move on. And then everybody here's what I was thinking about the other day. I was looking at mocks, putting together mine, and I'm like, is this going to be one of the first drafts in a while where, like, as much as we're excited for it, the first several picks are going to be predetermined like weeks in advance? Is this going to be one of the most accurate top 10s of all time? Not because we're all geniuses and we can all peg this out, but because these players are so elite this year, and it feels like these picks are predetermined because the needs are so obvious. Like the top 3 teams desperately need a quarterback, and the Cardinals desperately need Marvin, and Harbaugh wants a tackle, and the Giants will take Nabers. It feels like we're in a position. I think the Titans are going to go tackle Alu Fashanu or Joe Alt, whomever doesn't get picked. If there's a year to bet on the positions with our friends at BetMGM, like this feels like the year. Like if you can get decent odds on Caleb Williams right now, first overall, or you can get decent odds on a quarterback to the Patriots or quarterback going 3, you take that right now. Because I think, as much as I love our props ahead of draft season, it could dry up in early April, and you might have to be looking at like the 2nd and 3rd round.
I mean, there's so many different like ebbs and flows to this, and it just like after the Super Bowl, you have a little bit with the Senior Bowl, and you've got some risers there, but like the Combine really is going to catapult some guys and shake up draft boards and the moves that are going to happen, at the Combine potentially shortly after and before free agency. And then free agency is also going to play a big role in that. Like what we know to be true today isn't going to be the same as it is going to be drafted. But I hear what you're saying. I think we're starting to kind of become like weather forecasters in Arizona instead of, somewhere like in Florida, like where you have to forecast rain at like a bunch and you can be wrong a lot, right? I think with it's becoming, with all the information that we have and the scouting intel and really truly understanding these prospects and how good they can be and kind of taking out some of the guys that have large bustability. Like you're still going to see busts, right? And it's still going to happen. But I think teams are doing their homework more than ever, and so are fans.
So we're going to have breaking news here from Benjamin Albright momentarily, but I want to tell everybody first, I got breaking news for you. The best credit union is a local credit union, and it's the official credit union of the Arizona Cardinals. It's Desert Financial Credit Union. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicating and creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make life better. They've made my life better. Best checking account I've ever had. On top of that, savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. No better place than to dabble with our friends at Desert Financial. Represent the Red Sea with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. I got mine right here. No, you can't see it, but it is elite. You can get your own right now. Go to desertfinancial.com/Cardinals to get started. It takes a matter of minutes to get a free brand new spanking checking account. Debit card will be in the mail a couple days after the fact. I promise you. I'm always looking for ATMs. I'm always looking for a bank. This is the one I've opted to go with, and there are a ton of locations, quick, fast, and efficient to get you your money on top of everything else. Desert Financial Credit Union. Do not hesitate. Get there now.
And we're always trying to put you in a position to win more money. And Prize Picks is always trying to do that for you as well. What's Prize Picks? It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest, most exciting way for daily fantasy sports. It's just against the numbers. Instead of betting thousands of other players, why would you do that, including pros and sharks? You pick more than or less than. More or less. That's all you have to decide, Johnny. It's that simple. You could do that, can't you?
I can.
Are you gonna have more than 2.5 beers tonight after the show?
Depends. Probably. I don't know. Probably less.
Man, maybe Prize Picks isn't for you, but it's for me. It's a simple answer. It's more. 2 to 6 players in stat combo and projections to watch the winnings roll in. You can turn $10 into $1,000. It's that easy. We love playing it. It was great to get back in the state of Arizona because we couldn't do it in Nevada. Go to prizepicks.com/PHNX and use the code PHNX for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/PHNX. Use the code PHNX for daily fantasy sports made easy. We love, of course, Prize Picks. They were one of our big sponsors during the Super Bowl. Prize Picks, more or less, it simplifies daily fantasy sports for you. Get in on it. Download the app. Go to prizepicks.com/PHNX.
Prize Picks elite. My beer drinking game not elite. So that's kind of why I answered that question. Who else is elite? Our guy Benjamin Albright, NFL insider, friend of this program on Twitter. Thanks to K1 since day one for pointing this out. And this is the tweet from himself, Benjamin Albright, about an hour ago on the Twitter streets, saying that the Chicago Bears, they've made up their mind. Maybe we don't. Okay. We're almost ready for the tweet. But in the meantime, somebody asked in the chat, this is very important, Bo, where did you get your hat?
I believe I got this at a hat club. I think so.
A private hat club?
I think it's a store. If you've been walking around, this world, the United States for the last 10 to 20 years.
That was like a speakeasy. Like, oh, it's a private hat club. You can on Twitter an hour ago, Benjamin Albright, friend of the program, breaking news. The Chicago Bears have decided, yes, he's number one. He's going number one, that being Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears circa the 2024 NFL draft. We all assumed it was a done deal, and Albright confirming it. And I think, again, to our earlier conversation, Bo Brack puts a ticking timeline on Justin Fields' tenure in Chicago. The more this news is out there, the more you got to assume that it expedites a deal, and then the Bears can spend the next 2 months scouting the rest of the picks in their draft. And this is all but, precursor to April.
Yeah, it adds to your confidence level, right? And Benjamin's been on this thing the last couple of years and has been really spot on as far as who's going where and which teams are interested in which prospects. So your confidence level as far as having one of the 3 teams in front of you go quarterback. So now we're on to Washington. I'd love to see a confirmation of, which team the Commanders are going to fall in love with. We're kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit. They want a mobile quarterback, and both the next 2 prospects are pretty mobile, but one more so than the other, Jaden Daniels over Drake May. And then the true wild card in New England at 3, you need some sort of confirmation. I think that 3rd overall selection is going to be a quarterback before, we start printing up Marvin Harrison Jr. jerseys officially here in the desert.
Albright then expanding on what could be in store for picks 2 and 3. He says, "Don't."
Why'd you let me just drone on about it?
No. He does. He didn't confirm anything. Anything. But here's what he did say, because he was responding to Trevor Woods, who is, I think, a Michigan Wolverine reporter, saying that JJ McCarthy could enter the top 3, which I don't know about that, and I don't think I love that from the grand scheme of. We don't want 4 quarterbacks available, because then you get teams that are disillusioned that they don't need to trade up or they don't need to do X, Y, and Z. But I think JJ McCarthy probably from here on out is going to be a name we got to get familiar with in terms of just being around the NFL draft landscape. I did not, when we started this process in the fall and watching him every college football Saturday, I did not expect him to be a first rounder. I didn't think he was worth a second round pick, frankly. But now here we're at Jaden, Drake, JJ McCarthy, and Caleb Williams. Like that's the foursome right now that we're going to preview.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it just shows some of the desperation that's out there to find their next franchise quarterback. And you see the skill set, and like I saw a highlight today of JJ McCarthy making plays in space, and it was unbelievable. But at the same time, you got to be able to, can he be a rhythm passer? And I think Jim Harbaugh, what he did with the Wolverines, it was a run heavy offense. Like you rarely saw McCarthy put the ball up in the air 25 plus times during a game. So like, can he be a guy that you can really rely upon to make the throws down the stretch and win football games and big football games, once you hit the postseason? So, I think that there's going to be a lot of homework that has to be done on JJ McCarthy from these quarterback hungry teams between now and draft day.
Just got to assume like he's so similar to Mac Jones physically. Maybe he's a little bit thicker. I just can't imagine that the Patriots
way more athletic.
Yeah,
more better
mobile.
body. Yeah, better body. Like Mac Jones.
They're both 6'3" though, and they both
remember his waddle to like his waddle walk to get
Mac
his jersey.
Jones? Yeah.
He ain't no McCorkle. A little respect on his name.
No, I won't. I can't, and I won't. I'll put respect on GoPHNX.com though. Become a diehard and join the PHNX Cardinals diehard Discord. We just cranked out some exclusive content. We've got exclusive content dropping mañana, including an audio-only podcast. Download it at PHNX Cardinals, wherever you get your podcast. And we got a ton of events coming up here. PHNX Suns just had a monster takeover. Coyotes, Diamondbacks got some fun stuff in store. We've got spring training kicking off here with the Diamondbacks in just a couple of weeks. And then we've got our big draft party coming up in late April. So if you want to keep tabs on all of that, got to be a diehard. The takeover was a huge success, despite Devin Booker being unfairly ejected from that game. Still got the dub with the best diehards in the Valley. That's PHNX Cardinals. Go PHNX.com, Bo. Get it now.
Yeah, and maybe we'll drop all the insight as far as our draft party first to our diehards. Of course,
we definitely will.
And I know we had two diehards that dropped their mock draft in there. We made sure to highlight those today, and everybody knocked it out of the park. Great mock drafts. We'll do it again next week. Maybe next week we'll give over the mock draft reins to our guy Damon Dog. Is it going to happen that early as next week? We don't know, but there's probably going to be some breaking news over the weekend. As far as the NFL, it's now you're starting to see the Jets are going to release a quartet of key players from their roster, and I think two of them are guys that the Arizona Cardinals should check in on. As far as Quentin Jefferson, the interior defensive lineman, and the cornerback who had four picks. Yeah, check this out from ESPN's Jets reporter. 4 players with contracts they had them voided today. Tackle Dwayne Brown, edge Carl Lawson, safety Jordan Whitehead, and then tackle Quentin Jefferson gives them some early start on free agency. So Cardinals, I think, especially Jefferson, could be somebody that could take a look at. I know he's a little bit older, but a rotational guy.
Yeah, he's 30. Whitehead's not an option. Cardinals have good safeties. Dwayne Brown was actually, I think, the tackle that got smoked and sent Aaron Rodgers to an exploded Achilles. So I don't think he's going to be an option. Carl Lawson's interesting for a couple different reasons. He's only 28 years old and was really good for Lou Anarumo while in Cincinnati. So it's a name to watch if the Cardinals want to do some bargain shopping at edge rusher. And, fair or not, unlike Zaven Collins, like he's a true edge rusher. And he's, I think, particularly strong against the run, even though he doesn't have as much juice as he used to have. So
yeah,
I think you can bargain bin. I don't think the Cardinals are going to go out and spend a bunch of money before free agency on guys like this, but these are people to watch in mid to late March if these guys start taking visits. Because anytime you're dealing with mid-tier guys that are in their late 20s, early 30s, you're looking at max 2-year deals. Max. You can probably get these guys on 1-year deals to fill out the meat of your roster. So definitely something to watch, and we're going to start connecting the dots here. Should have some more news this time next week, if not earlier, on some of the free agent plans for the Arizona Cardinals ahead of the Combine, but you can't get that anywhere else other than the PHNX Cardinals podcast. Drop a like, if you would, on this video. Subscribe to PHNX Sports if you haven't already here on YouTube. Subscribe to PHNX Cardinals on the Twitter streets. Damon Dog crushing it. We've all been remote this week. Now, I permanently am remote, but I think Bo and Damon are going to be back in the studio next week as we get primed and ready. Our phenomenal week of coverage previewing the NFL Combine and more live Monday. You can't get this content anywhere else. Like and subscribe. For Bo Damon, Johnny Venerable, we'll see you. Have a great weekend.
We all silly like the mayor.